All right, gang, and welcome to Draw, Sketch, and Paint in Procreate. So the very first thing out, you've unboxed the Procreate app now, you've downloaded it. What do you do now, right? This is your typical user interface that you're going to experience right after opening the program. So we're going to approach this like you're brand new to digital art. We're going to take it from the basics and build on up. So over in the upper left-hand corner here, you see where it says Gallery. It has an icon that looks like a wrench and a magic wand. This is your upper left-hand menu, and if we tap on Gallery, it brings you right back to your gallery. If I tap on my artwork, it brings me back to my artwork. Now, we're going to be dealing with each one of these menus in its own time. So if we open up the wrench icon, you'll see that we've got Image, Canvas, Share. Under Share, there's a lot of the export options. We're going to be going through each one of these in detail. As an example, when we go to Image, you see that we've got Insert a Photo. We're going to be working on a program in which we actually have to insert a photo. So we'll deal with these in the course of the lectures. We're not going to go in detail in this lecture. Now here, this is your adjustments panel. And if you're familiar with Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Lightroom, any of the Affinity Designer products, or Affinity Photo, these are typical adjustment layers. So we'll deal with these again in their own lessons and in the course of different projects. This little S, what looks like a ribbon tied around itself there, twirled around itself, this is your selection. So you'll see that there's no drop-down menu for this, but look down here at the bottom. You see the freehand and the automatic selected? This is your selection menu. So this controls what's called your selection mode. And now this one here controls, once you've made your selection, it controls how you move your selection. So that's a little bit about the upper left-hand corner. Now, on the upper right-hand corner, you've got your brushes menu. So here, this is what's called a brush category. You see how I'm moving down the brush categories? And within the brush categories, you've got different brushes. Now, when we double-click on a brush, that will allow you to edit all of the different attributes with that brush. You see I can adjust the stroke, the shape, the grain, the dynamic. We're going to deal with that all in their own time in other lessons in the lecture. So all you need to know now, you tap on that left-hand side to get back to it. And this is how you select brushes to draw with. Now, if you click on the little hand here, this is your smudge tool. And notice it uses the exact same brushes. So you can use a brush to draw. You can also use it to smudge. And now what do you think the icon that's shaped like the eraser to the right is? Absolutely the eraser icon, right? Notice the erasers use exactly the same brushes. So the brush palette, folks, is extremely important. And I'll tell you what, one of the coolest things about Procreate is the brushes that you can make with it. Now, right next to the eraser is the layers panel. Now, if you're familiar with digital art, you know what the layers panel does. But let's go ahead and take this and swipe with your finger or your stylus to the left. You'll see you've got lock, duplicate, and clear. Swipe back to the right. Click on the N. Notice here you can adjust the opacity of the layer. You see how that's moving for me? And then you can select different blend modes. You see how those are turning blue. I'm going to keep it in the normal blend mode. And now let's go ahead, tap on the gray icon here, and you'll see we can rename the layer. There's an entire lesson on layers, but if you're familiar with layers from a digital art side, this is where you find your layer adjustments in Procreate. Now, right next to there is a circle. This is your color panel. Now, there are 4 different ways you can look at color. You see how the blue disc is selected. There's an arrow pointing to it right now. You've got that view. You've got the classic view. You could select based on value. Here you've got your HSB and your RGB values. Now again, for artists that are familiar with that, you're good to go. You've also got your hex key. And then you can create custom palettes. We're going to show you how to do all of that during this course. So no need to worry about it right now. Let's just go back to the disk and I want to show you how it works. If you click around the outside, and you drag it with your finger or your stylus, it changes the hue. You move it top to bottom, it gets lighter and darker. Move it left to right, it gets more or less saturated. So that's a little bit on that upper right hand menu. Now let's go over to the far left hand side and you'll see that we have two what are called sliders. This slider is your size of the brush. You see my brush size is sitting right now about 72%. This is the opacity of the slider. I've got the brush down to about 41% opacity. And when I click this little thing in the middle, my color picker pops up. We're not going to deal with the color picker right now. We're going to deal with the color picker in a later lesson. But just know to get to your color picker, that's like your quick select to get to the color picker. That is going to be one of your best friends, by the way, folks. Now, in a parting shot for the last section on this left-hand side, here is the undo. Right here, that little backward looking arrow. So if you do something you don't like, you can always undo it. And then right below it is the redo. Because I don't have anything on the screen, I don't have anything to redo. So there's your undo, redo. All right, those are the big three geographic areas in this Procreate interface. Now, we're going to go through, the next lesson is going to tell you what Procreate is and what it's not. And then we're going to launch right into a project to get you guys moving like pros. All right, folks, we'll catch you in the next lessons, and we'll start moving some stuff.